Explain the concept of risk-based monitoring (RBM) and how it contrasts with traditional monitoring approaches. What are the potential advantages of implementing RBM in clinical trials, and what challenges might arise during its adoption? Answer: risk-based monitoring (RBM) is an adaptive and data-driven approach to monitoring clinical trials, focusing on the identification and management of risks rather than the traditional focus on the frequency of site visits. This approach prioritizes monitoring efforts on high-risk sites, data, or activities, leveraging key risk indicators (CRIS) and centralized data analytics to guide decision-making. In traditional monitoring, all sites typically receive the same level of monitoring attention regardless of their performance or risk profile. In contrast, RBM uses a more efficient allocation of resources, directing more attention to sites or processes with identified risks. The advantages of RBM include more efficient use of resources, reduced monitoring costs, and quicker identification of risks such as data inconsistencies or regulatory issues. The challenge, however, lies in the reliance on data analytics, which requires robust systems to gather, process, and analyze data in real time, and the potential resistance from stakeholders used to traditional methods. What are key risk indicators, CRIS, in the context of risk-based monitoring? Provide examples of how KIs can be used to assess and mitigate risks during a clinical trial. Answer: key risk indicators, CRIS, are quantifiable metrics that help assess potential risks within a clinical trial. These indicators are used to predict the likelihood of problems occurring during the trial and to provide actionable insights for monitoring and mitigation. KIs may vary depending on the trial type, therapeutic area, and operational structure, but common examples include data entry errors, frequency of data discrepancies or missing data points at each site, signaling potential data quality issues, patient enrollment rates. Low enrollment rates may indicate issues with recruitment strategies or site performance. Adverse event reporting delays. Late or insufficient reporting of adverse events can indicate compliance risks and safety monitoring concerns. By tracking these CRIS, clinical trial teams can identify emerging risks early and take preventive measures such as increasing monitoring at a specific site or reviewing data entry processes. Compare and contrast centralized monitoring and on-site monitoring in clinical trials. How do each of these approaches contribute to risk management, and what are their respective advantages and disadvantages? Answer: centralized monitoring and on-site monitoring are two distinct approaches to managing clinical trial risks. Centralized monitoring. This approach relies on data collected from all trial sites, which is analyzed remotely by the central monitoring team. It focuses on the use of data analytics to identify trends, deviations, and emerging risks across sites in real time. Centralized monitoring offers the advantage of flexibility, scalability, and cost efficiency as it minimizes the need for on-site visits. However, it depends on robust technology infrastructure and data quality, and it may not capture site-specific nuances as effectively as on-site monitoring. On-site monitoring. This traditional method involves on-site visits to clinical trial sites where monitors review study data, conduct source document verification, and interact directly with site staff. While it provides a more thorough and direct assessment of site operations, it is resource-intensive, both in terms of time and cost. On-site monitoring is less adaptive than centralized monitoring and may not be as effective in identifying risks across multiple sites simultaneously. Both approaches contribute to risk management by ensuring that data quality, regulatory compliance, and patient safety are continuously monitored. The challenge is to strike the right balance between centralized and on-site monitoring to optimize resource use and risk mitigation. Mr. Thompson is managing a clinical trial in phase I of development. He is concerned that the trial is running over budget due to increased site costs and unexpected regulatory delays. How should Mr. Thompson address these financial challenges, and what steps should he take to revise the budget and manage costs effectively? Answer: in this situation, Mr. Thompson should first conduct a comprehensive review of the existing budget to identify specific areas where costs are exceeding projections. This involves breaking down the budget by categories such as site costs, assessing the reasons for increased site expenses, such as recruitment challenges, higher than expected subject costs, or inefficiencies in site management, regulatory delays, understanding the root cause of regulatory delays, which might include approval issues or delays in submitting required documents. Once the issues have been identified, Mr. Thompson should consider the following steps: reforecasting the budget. Update the budget based on revised timelines and cost expectations. This may involve adjusting forecasted costs for sites, regulatory activities, and vendor services. Cost control measures. Implement cost-cutting strategies where possible, such as negotiating with vendors for better pricing or increasing the use of remote monitoring (RBM) to reduce site visit expenses. A risk-based approach. Focus monitoring and financial tracking on high-risk areas, such as sites with recruitment challenges or complex regulatory requirements, to identify further cost-saving opportunities. What are the best practices for controlling costs and tracking financial performance in a clinical trial? How can clinical research teams ensure that they stay within budget while maintaining the quality and integrity of the trial? Answer: effective cost control and financial tracking in clinical trials require a combination of proactive planning, regular monitoring, and the use of appropriate financial management tools. Best practices include detailed budget planning. Ensure that the initial budget includes detailed cost estimates for all aspects of the trial, such as site costs, recruitment monitoring, regulatory and data management. Ongoing financial monitoring. Regularly compare actual expenses to the budget and analyze any discrepancies. This allows for early identification of potential cost overruns and gives teams the opportunity to adjust spending as necessary. Cost-effective vendor management. Carefully negotiate contracts with vendors and service providers to secure the best possible rates. Regularly review vendor performance to ensure that services are being delivered according to contract terms and on budget using financial tracking software. Leverage financial management software or integrated trial management platforms that offer real-time visibility into budget performance. Scenario planning. Develop what-if financial models to anticipate potential cost overruns due to common challenges like site delays, regulatory holdups, or patient recruitment issues. In a situation where a vendor is consistently late in delivering services, how should the clinical trial manager address this issue within the context of contract management? What steps should be taken to ensure that the vendor meets performance expectations? Answer: if a vendor is failing to meet performance expectations, the clinical trial manager should take the following steps to address the issue within the framework of contract management. Review the contract terms. Examine the terms of the contract to identify any clauses related to timelines, deliverables, and penalties for non-compliance. Ensure that the vendor is aware of their obligations. Communicate clearly with the vendor. Address the issue directly with the vendor, explaining the impact of the delays on the trial timeline and performance. It's essential to maintain clear communication and work collaboratively to resolve the issue. Implement corrective action plans. If delays continue, work with the vendor to create a corrective action plan with specific milestones and timelines. The plan should outline steps the vendor will take to ensure timely delivery of services moving forward. Monitor performance regularly. Set up a monitoring system that tracks vendor performance more closely with more frequent check-ins and status updates to ensure adherence to the corrective action plan. Consider penalties or contract amendments. If performance issues persist, enforce any penalties outlined in the contract. How should a clinical research associate (CRO) develop a comprehensive monitoring plan that effectively incorporates risk-based monitoring (RBM) principles, and what key elements must be considered during the planning process? Answer: a comprehensive monitoring plan that incorporates risk-based monitoring (RBM) principles should be structured to focus resources on high-risk areas, ensuring that data integrity and patient safety are maintained. Key elements to consider during the planning process include risk assessment. Identify potential risks across all trial phases, from protocol design to site operations. This may include factors such as patient recruitment challenges, site performance issues, or data collection errors. Key risk indicators. CRIS. Define the KIs that will be used to monitor risks, such as data accuracy, patient dropout rates, or protocol deviations. Monitoring strategy. Develop a risk-based strategy for monitoring, which may include more frequent visits to high-risk sites or implementing centralized monitoring techniques to track CRIS. Resource allocation. Allocate monitoring resources based on risk assessment results, prioritizing high-risk sites and activities while optimizing the use of centralized or remote monitoring tools. Contingency plans. Create contingency plans to address any emerging risks, such as additional training for site staff or the deployment of additional resources to sites facing challenges. What are the key considerations in developing payments and reimbursement procedures for clinical trial sites, and how can these processes be structured to ensure compliance with regulatory guidelines? Answer: key considerations in developing payments and reimbursement procedures for clinical trial sites include clear payment terms. Ensure that the terms of payment are clearly outlined in the site contract, including the timing and conditions for reimbursement. This should align with the trial milestones. G. Patient enrollment, completion of data collection, compliance with regulatory guidelines. Payments should comply with relevant regulations, such as the FDOS clinical trial financial requirements and any local laws governing financial interactions with research sites. This includes ensuring that payments are reasonable and not inducements, documentation and tracking, establish clear processes for documenting all payments and reimbursements, ensuring that invoices are matched with deliverables. This provides an audit trail that can be reviewed for compliance purposes. Audit and monitoring. Regularly audit payments to ensure that they are consistent with contractual terms and that reimbursements are properly substantiated with the appropriate documentation. How can clinical trial teams use monitoring data to detect risks early in the trial process, and what tools or technologies can support this effort? Answer: early detection of risks in clinical trials is critical to ensuring the safety and integrity of the study. Clinical trial teams can use monitoring data effectively by employing the following strategies. Data analytics tools utilize advanced data analytics platforms to analyze site performance, patient enrollment, adverse events, and other trial metrics in real time. These tools can identify emerging trends and deviations that may indicate potential risks. Centralized monitoring. Use centralized monitoring techniques to aggregate data from multiple sites, making it easier to spot issues that may arise at one site but affect the overall trial, such as data discrepancies or inconsistent protocol adherence. Key risk indicators. CRIS leverage KIs to track indicators such as patient recruitment progress, data completeness, and adverse event reporting delays. Monitoring these indicators can help detect risks early. Remote monitoring tools. Implement remote monitoring solutions that allow trial teams to continuously track trial performance without needing to conduct on-site visits, thus enabling quicker intervention. Why is financial compliance and auditing critical in clinical trials, and how can clinical research teams ensure adherence to financial regulations during the trial process? Answer: financial compliance and auditing are essential in clinical trials to ensure transparency, prevent fraud, and ensure that all financial transactions are accurately recorded and reported. Compliance is crucial because clinical trials are subject to a range of regulations, such as those enforced by the FDA and other regulatory bodies, to ensure the integrity of trial data and patient safety. To ensure financial compliance, clinical research teams should implement robust accounting systems, use accurate, up-to-date accounting systems that track all trial-related expenses and revenues. This ensures that funds are allocated properly and that spending aligns with the approved budget. Regular audits. Conduct periodic internal and external audits to verify that financial transactions and expenditures comply with regulatory standards and contractual agreements. Train site staff. Ensure that trial sites are trained on financial compliance, including invoicing and reimbursement procedures, to avoid errors or inconsistencies in reporting. Monitor financial activity. Continuously monitor the financial status of the trial to detect any anomalies or issues that may require corrective actions. What are the key challenges faced by clinical research associates (CROs) when communicating with clinical investigators, and how can these be addressed to ensure successful collaboration? Answer: clinical research associates (CROs) must navigate a variety of challenges when communicating with clinical investigators and sites. Some of the key challenges include misunderstanding of protocol requirements. Investigators may misinterpret the protocol, leading to non-compliance with study procedures. This can be mitigated by regular and clear communication about the study protocol, emphasizing any critical aspects of the protocol that need to be followed. Time constraints. Investigators and site staff often have multiple commitments, making it challenging for them to prioritize the clinical trial. The CRA can mitigate this by ensuring timely and efficient communication, offering flexible meeting times, and using digital tools for quicker updates. Cultural differences or language barriers. If sites are in different regions, cultural or language differences can cause misunderstandings. To overcome this, CRs should be sensitive to cultural nuances and, if necessary, provide translation services or culturally appropriate communication strategies. In a clinical trial, how should a CRA handle the communication of an unexpected serious adverse event that has occurred at a site? What are the regulatory requirements for reporting this SAE? Answer: when an unexpected serious adverse event occurs, the CRA must immediately assess and report it to the sponsor and regulatory authorities. The CRA should assess the event, review the event in detail, including patient details, the severity of the reaction, and any medical interventions required. Ensure timely reporting. Under 21 CFR 312.32, FDA regulations and SAE must be reported to the sponsor within 24 hours. The sponsor, in turn, must report the event to regulatory agencies, e.g., the FDA or EMAT, within a specified time frame, usually 7 or 15 calendar days, depending on the seriousness of the event. Document the communication. The CRA must ensure that the report is documented properly in the Trial Master File (TMF) and follow up with the site for any additional information. The communication should be clear, consistent, and compliant with regulatory reporting timelines. The CRA must also ensure the investigator completes the serious adverse event form, which includes all necessary patient information, the date of onset, and the relationship of the event to the trial drug. Mr. Thompson, the CI, is currently managing a site that is behind on patient recruitment for a clinical trial. The site has expressed concerns about the feasibility of meeting recruitment targets, and the principal investigator, Pi, is frustrated with the expectations. Mr. Thompson needs to negotiate a revised recruitment plan. What steps should he take to effectively manage this negotiation and maintain a positive relationship with the site? Answer: in this scenario, Mr. Thompson needs to employ strong negotiation skills to address the concerns while maintaining a collaborative relationship with the site. The steps he should take include: listen actively. Mr. Thompson should first listen to the concerns of the PI and site staff, allowing them to express frustrations and challenges. This helps build trust and ensures that their concerns are fully understood. Understand underlying issues. He should ask clarifying questions to understand any barriers to recruitment, such as issues with patient enrollment, staffing, or site resources. Identifying the root causes will allow for a more targeted solution. Propose solutions. Mr. Thompson should come up with practical solutions that address the issues while still aiming to meet the study's recruitment goals. For example, proposing additional resources, such as a patient recruitment specialist or additional support from the sponsor, may ease the burden on the site. Negotiate timelines and expectations. Mr. Thompson should be open to adjusting timelines and expectations if necessary to ensure that the site feels supported. He can propose a phased recruitment approach with more realistic goals. Document the revised plan. Once an agreement is reached, the updated recruitment plan should be documented and any changes should be communicated clearly to all stakeholders. Effective negotiation in clinical research is guided by principles of good clinical practice (GCP), which emphasize maintaining a collaborative relationship between CROs, sites, and investigators, ensuring the successful execution of clinical trials. What are the key elements that must be included in a monitoring report to ensure it meets regulatory standards and supports ongoing clinical trial management? Answer: a clear and comprehensive monitoring report is essential for documenting site activities, compliance, and issues identified during a site visit. Key elements that should be included in the report are: study overview, a brief overview of the clinical trial, including study objectives, protocol version, and relevant timelines. Site information, details about the site, such as the name of the principal investigator, PI site personnel involved, and the site's recruitment and retention progress. Monitoring visit details, the date of the visit, the CRA conducting the visit, and any preparatory actions taken prior to the site visit, findings and observations. Detailed notes on the site's compliance with the protocol, regulatory requirements, and GCP. This includes patient enrollment status, informed consent processes, adverse event reporting, and proper documentation in the case report form (CRF), corrective and preventive actions (COPPAs). Any issues identified during the visit should be accompanied by corrective actions that the site must take to remain in compliance. If necessary, preventive actions to avoid recurrence should also be outlined. You are working as a CRA on a clinical trial, and there is a significant conflict between the site staff and the sponsor regarding the implementation of a protocol amendment. The site believes the changes are impractical, and the sponsor insists on compliance. How should you manage this situation to ensure both sides are satisfied and the trial continues smoothly? Answer: in this case, effective conflict resolution is necessary to ensure the continuation of the trial while maintaining a positive relationship with both the site and sponsor. The CRA should facilitate communication, act as a neutral party to facilitate open and honest communication between the site and sponsor, ensure both sides have an opportunity to voice their concerns, understand the root cause, investigate the specific issues causing the conflict. Is the site concerned about feasibility, cost, or patient safety? Identifying the underlying issues will allow for a more targeted approach to resolution. Propose solutions. Work with both parties to propose solutions that satisfy the sponsor's requirements while addressing the site's concerns. For example, negotiating an extension for implementing the amendment or providing additional support to help the site comply. Document the resolution. Ensure that the resolution is documented in the trial master file and communicated to all relevant parties to avoid future misunderstandings. Regulatory guidelines such as ICHE emphasize the importance of maintaining collaboration and communication in clinical trials to resolve conflicts effectively and keep the study on track. What are the key strategies a clinical research associate (CRA) can use to advance their career within the clinical research field, and how do certifications and continuing education contribute to this development? Answer: to advance in the clinical research field, CRs should focus on several career development strategies. Pursue advanced certifications. Obtaining certifications such as the Certified Clinical Research Associate (CCROA) credential offered by the Association of Clinical Research Professionals (ACRP) can enhance a CRO's qualifications and demonstrate a commitment to professional development. Engaging continuing education. Ongoing education through workshops, webinars, and specialized courses is essential for keeping up to date with regulatory changes, new research methodologies, and technological advances. Continuing education also helps CRs improve skills in areas like project management, leadership, and data analysis. Networking and mentorship. Joining professional organizations such as ACRP or the Society of Clinical Research Associates (SOCRA) and seeking mentorship from experienced professionals can provide valuable guidance and open up career opportunities. Develop soft skills. Leadership, communication, and conflict resolution skills are important for advancing into roles such as clinical trial manager (CTM) or director of clinical operations. Why is continuing education and certification critical for clinical research associates (CRAs), and how does it impact the quality and compliance of clinical trials? Answer: continuing education and certification are essential for maintaining the high standards required in clinical research. The benefits include staying up to date with regulatory changes. Clinical research is heavily regulated, and laws and guidelines are frequently updated. For example, the FDA Code of Federal Regulations (CFR) and ICH GCP guidelines are updated to reflect new developments in clinical trials. Certification programs ensure CRs are aware of these changes. Improved knowledge and skill set. Through certification programs like the CCRA and continued education, CRs gain specialized knowledge that enhances their ability to manage complex clinical trials and make informed decisions. Quality assurance and compliance. A well-trained CRA ensures that trials are conducted ethically and data integrity is maintained, reducing the risk of regulatory violations and non-compliance. The ACRP and other professional organizations offer certification programs that provide practical knowledge which directly impacts the quality and compliance of clinical trials. Maria, a CRA, is working on a multi-center clinical trial where one site is consistently submitting delayed reports. Maria has already addressed the issue multiple times with the site, but the problem persists. How can Maria effectively use her soft skills to resolve this ongoing issue and ensure the site submits the reports on time? Answer: Maria should approach this situation with empathy and professionalism to resolve the ongoing issue. The steps she should take include reaffirm expectations, revisit the initial agreement regarding report submission deadlines, explain the importance of timely reporting for trial integrity and patient safety, investigate the root cause, use active listening to understand any underlying reasons for the delays, such as resource shortages, misunderstandings, or internal site challenges, offer support, suggest providing additional support or resources to help the site meet deadlines, such as offering training or clarifying instructions if necessary, collaborate on a solution, work with the site to create the more realistic timeline, or prioritize critical reports. Soft skills such as effective communication, negotiation, and conflict resolution, all governed by GCP guidelines, are crucial for managing this type of issue professionally. What role do leadership and management skills play in the success of a clinical research associate (CRA), and how can ACRA develop these skills to enhance trial performance? Answer: leadership and management skills are vital for ensuring clinical trials run smoothly and efficiently. Key roles include effective team management. A CRA with strong leadership skills can manage multiple sites and teams, ensuring alignment with the study goals. Problem solving and decision making. Strong management skills help a CRA quickly identify issues, evaluate potential solutions, and implement corrective actions when problems arise. Resource management. Good leadership ensures the efficient use of resources such as time, personnel, and finances to meet recruitment targets and compliance goals. Mentoring and training. A CRA with leadership skills can mentor site staff and colleagues, improving overall team performance. Developing these skills requires experience, formal training in leadership, and taking on progressively more complex trial management responsibilities, all within the framework of GCP. How does a clinical research associate (CRA) transition into more senior roles in clinical research, and what qualifications are typically required for those advanced positions? Answer: to transition from a CRA to more senior roles, such as clinical trial manager (CTM) or director of clinical operations, the following steps are necessary. Develop technical expertise, gain in-depth knowledge of regulatory requirements, trial design, and therapeutic areas. Pursue advanced certifications, obtain higher-level certifications or take specialized courses in areas like clinical trial management or pharmacovigilance. Gain project management experience. Take on additional responsibilities related to project management, budget management, and oversight of multiple sites. Develop leadership skills. Strong leadership and communication skills are essential for advancing to senior roles where managing teams and making strategic decisions is required. By following these steps, a CRA can transition smoothly into senior roles while continuing to adhere to industry standards like GCP and ICHE. What are the key differences between Phase I, Phase II, and Phase II clinical trials, and how do the ethical considerations evolve across these phases? Answer: the phases of clinical trials are structured as follows. Phase I. This phase involves a small group of healthy volunteers, typically 2-1-0. It is primarily concerned with assessing the safety, tolerability, and pharmacokinetics of a drug. The goal is to identify the drug's most common side effects and determine a safe dosage range. Ethical considerations are focused on informed consent, ensuring that participants are fully aware of the risks since they are healthy volunteers and not patients suffering from the disease the drug targets. Phase Omen 2. In this phase, the drug is tested on a larger group of people 1-0-3-0 who have the disease or condition for which the drug is intended. The primary goal is to assess the drug's efficacy, safety, and the optimal dosing regimen. Ethical considerations focus on the risk-benefit ratio as participants are patients with the condition being treated, and careful monitoring for adverse events is crucial. Phase Omen through Phase II trials involve large populations. 1-0-0-3-0-0 participants and aim to confirm the drug's efficacy, monitor side effects, compare it to commonly used treatments, and gather information for labeling. Ethical concerns include the necessity of providing participants with the best available treatment while minimizing risks, as well as ensuring that informed consent is obtained with a complete understanding of the treatment risks. Ethical considerations evolve from ensuring safety and informing participants in early phases to balancing the need for efficacy with safety in larger, more diverse patient populations. Explain the concept of Type I and Type II errors in clinical research, and how do they influence the design of clinical trials? Answer: Type I error, false positive. This occurs when a clinical trial incorrectly rejects the null hypothesis, concluding that a treatment is effective when it is not. The probability of committing a Type I error is denoted by the significance level alpha A, commonly set at 0.5. This means there is a 5% risk of wrongly concluding that the treatment has an effect. Type I error, false negative. This occurs when a trial fails to reject the null hypothesis when there actually is a true effect. The probability of a Type I error is denoted by beta B, and the power of a test 1b is the probability of detecting an effect if one exists. In clinical trial design, the risk of both errors must be minimized to ensure reliable results. A balance must be struck between choosing an appropriate alpha level, typically 0.5, and ensuring enough sample size to reduce the likelihood of Type I errors. Statistical power analysis is critical in determining the appropriate sample size to ensure the trial is adequately powered to detect meaningful differences. A clinical trial shows a statistically significant difference in the primary endpoint between the treatment group and the placebo group. However, the treatment group also experiences a higher rate of serious adverse events, says. As a clinical research associate, what steps should you take to report and address this issue in compliance with regulatory requirements? Answer: when a treatment shows a statistically significant effect but is associated with a higher rate of SAEs, the following steps should be taken. Immediate reporting. Any serious adverse events, SAEs, must be reported immediately to the sponsor, the relevant ethics committees, and regulatory authorities such as the FDA or EMA as per Good Clinical Practice (GCP) guidelines. This is particularly important if the SAEs are unexpected and related to the investigation or product. Risk-benefit analysis. A thorough risk-benefit analysis should be conducted, evaluating the severity and frequency of the SAEs in relation to the benefit observed in the primary endpoint. This analysis should include an assessment of the causal relationship between the drug and the SAEs. Amendment of protocol. If the SAE suggests that the treatment poses significant risk, the protocol may need to be amended. This could include changes in patient inclusion-exclusion criteria, dosage adjustments, or modifications to monitoring requirements to ensure patient safety. Informed consent. Participants should be promptly informed about the risks involved, especially if new safety information emerges that could impact their decision to continue in the trial. Explain the role and methodology behind randomization and blinding in clinical trials, and how do these processes mitigate bias? Answer: randomization is the process of assigning participants to different treatment groups in a random manner, minimizing selection bias. This ensures that every participant has an equal chance of receiving any treatment, preventing the trial's outcomes from being influenced by known or unknown confounding factors. Methods of randomization. Simple randomization, random assignment using a random number generator. Block randomization. Participants are randomized in blocks to ensure that each group has the same number of participants. Stratified randomization ensures balance across important variables, e.g., age, disease severity, by randomizing participants within these strata. Blinding refers to keeping the participants, investigators, or both unaware of the treatment assignments to prevent bias from influencing treatment administration, patient reporting, or data analysis. Single blind. Only participants do not know which treatment they are receiving. Double blind. Both participants and researchers do not know the treatment assignments, which minimizes observer bias and expectation effects. These methodologies are critical to ensuring the trial's internal validity, as bias can distort the perceived treatment effects and undermine the generalizability of the findings. Mr. Douglas, a 65-year-old participant in a phase II clinical trial for a new cancer drug, experiences severe gastrointestinal distress, which he reports to the study coordinator. What should the study team do in response, and how should the event be handled in compliance with regulatory guidelines? Answer: in this case, Mr. Douglas is reporting a severe adverse event which must be handled carefully to ensure patient safety and regulatory compliance. Immediate medical attention. The first priority is to provide Mr. Douglas with medical care, ensuring that he receives treatment for the gastrointestinal distress, determine severity and relatedness. The study team must assess whether the event is indeed related to the investigation or product. If the event is severe, it must be classified as an SAE. The severity, potential cause, and the outcome must be documented. Reporting, as per GCP and regulatory guidelines, such as 21 CFR 312.32 for FDA, all SAEs must be reported to the sponsor and ethics committees within 24 hours of discovery. The event is unexpected and related to the drug, the regulatory authorities must also be notified. Informed consent. The study team must reassess whether additional information about the potential risks of the drug needs to be conveyed to other participants, and whether the informed consent document should be updated to reflect the new safety information. Monitoring. Mr. Douglas' case must be followed closely for any progression of symptoms or potential long-term effects. The Safety Monitoring Board, if applicable, should be involved in reviewing the event. Discuss the importance of pharmacokinetics (PK) and pharmacodynamics (PD) terminology in clinical research, and how understanding these concepts can impact the design and interpretation of clinical trials. Answer: pharmacokinetics (PK) refers to the study of the absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion of a drug in the body. PK parameters such as half-life, bioavailability, and clearance are critical for determining the drug's dosing regimen, frequency of administration, and potential for toxicity. Pharmacodynamics (PD) involves the study of the drug's biological effects on the body, particularly the mechanism of action and the relationship between drug concentration and effect. Key PD terms include efficacy, potency, and therapeutic index. Together, PK and PD inform the design of clinical trials by guiding dosing strategies and monitoring safety and efficacy. For instance, understanding a drug's half-life (PK) ensures that the dosing interval is appropriate, while understanding its dose-response curve (PD) helps in determining the effective dose that minimizes side effects. Both are essential for optimizing treatment protocols and evaluating the benefit-risk profile. Explain the use and significance of sample size calculations in clinical trials. How does sample size affect the trial's power and the potential for type I and type II errors? Answer: sample size calculation is essential for ensuring that a clinical trial is adequately powered to detect a significant difference between the treatment and control groups, if one exists. Power analysis. Power is the probability that the test will correctly reject the null hypothesis when it is false, i.e., detect a true effect. The sample size is directly related to power. A larger sample size increases the power of a study by reducing the potential for type I errors, false negatives. Type IO. The significance level A is the probability of committing a type IO false positive. A smaller A, G 0.1, requires a larger sample size to maintain statistical power. Type IO. A smaller sample size increases the risk of a type IO failing to detect a true effect. Researchers aim for a balance that minimizes both type I and type IOs, often targeting a power of 80% equals 0.2. Sample size calculations involve parameters such as the expected effect size, variability of the outcome, and the desired level of significance. Proper calculation is critical to avoid both ethical concerns, e.g., exposing too many participants to a potentially harmful treatment, and statistical concerns, e.g., failing to detect a meaningful difference. In the context of clinical trials, how are adverse events, AES, and serious adverse events, SAEs, defined, and what are the reporting requirements for each? Answer. Adverse event AE is any unfavorable and unintended sign, symptom, or disease that occurs during the study, regardless of whether it is related to the investigation or product. It includes both expected and unexpected events. Serious adverse event an SAE is an adverse event that results in death, is life-threatening, requires hospitalization, results in a persistent or significant disability, or causes congenital, a nominal birth defect. Regulatory requirements stipulate that AEs must be recorded and assessed throughout the study. SAEs must be reported immediately to the sponsor and regulatory authorities as per 21 CFR 312.32 for the FDA. SAEs require expedited reporting, often within 24 hours, with a follow-up report as necessary. The reporting timelines and details of what constitutes an SAE are strictly governed by the ADP guidelines. What role does the statistical methodology of ANOVA play in analyzing clinical trial data, and how does it help in understanding the effect of multiple treatment groups? Answer. Analysis of variance. ANOVA is a statistical method used to compare the means of 3 or more groups to determine if at least one group mean is significantly different from the others. In clinical trials, ANOVA is used when the trial includes multiple treatment groups or multiple time points to evaluate the efficacy or safety of different treatments. ANOVA tests the null hypothesis that all group means are equal. If the p-value is less than the alpha level, typically 0.5, it suggests that there is a statistically significant difference between the groups. This method helps to understand the impact of various treatments by comparing their effects in a controlled and structured way. Additionally, post-hoc tests are often used after ANOVA to determine which specific groups differ from each other. How does blinding affect the validity and reliability of a clinical trial, and what are the potential consequences of failing to properly blind a study? Answer. Blinding or masking is essential in clinical trials to prevent bias from influencing the results. It ensures that neither the participants nor the investigators know which treatment is being administered, preventing expectations or preconceived notions from altering the outcomes. Validity. Without proper blinding, the risk of observer bias, where the researcher's expectations influence their interpretation of results, and performance bias, where participants' responses are affected by knowing their treatment group, increases. This can invalidate the results, leading to an incorrect conclusion about the drug's efficacy or safety. Reliability. Blinding helps to ensure that the trial's outcomes are consistent and reproducible. Unblinded trials may lead to subjective reporting, unreliable data, and conclusions that are more influenced by placebo effects or researcher expectations than the treatment's true effects. Consequences of failing to properly blind a study include compromised data integrity, regulatory challenges, and reduced generalizability of the findings.